journey to Spokane was both long and short at the same time. As I cruised through Salmon River country in Idaho, I had planned nearly all of my stops, down to the hour. I had very little time for much else other than making videos during this first leg of my trip. On my final day alone, I stopped to explore a spooky ghost town in northern Idaho. This abandoned mining town has a violent history. Even more fascinating is that it was built inside a comically narrow canyon. Perhaps the congested nature of the town explains its murderous past. I also made time to visit perhaps my new favorite Idaho roadside attraction, the glorious Elmer's Fountain. Despite the heavy rain, it was an incredible sight to see. But now it was time for others to briefly join this adventure. I was heading to Washington to meet 3 of my best friends who were flying in from all over the country. This was our second straight year visiting the Gorge Amphitheater for DMB. The aftermath of another spectacular Labor Day weekend was necessarily peaceful. The concerts were spectacular, but the resulting exhaustion faded away slowly. Something seemed to be keeping me in the Northwest. I was not quite ready to leave. So the days turned into a week as I reconnected with my stealth camping past. I slept on the streets of the beautiful Coeur d'Alene, feeling invisible in the bed of my old pickup truck. The mornings were frigid and damp. Chilly overnight temperatures combined with the lack of insulation in the truck cap led to condensation in places that I didn't even know condensation could exist. But as the mornings grew brighter, everything dried quickly. Oh, and it's officially pumpkin time, baby. I spent a few days editing at coffee shops around town and getting caught up on work. I don't think it's possible for the weather to get any better in northern Idaho. I even had a chance to play one of the longest golf courses in America, the highlight being this rare 770-yard par 6, the longest hole I've ever played. I was happy to escape it with a par. The time soon came to leave Idaho. I did need to return to New Mexico eventually, but first I wanted to make a stop at one of my favorite places in the world. After one last visit to Elmer's fountain, I headed east. I spent a couple of nights immersed in the Montana pines as I waited out the weekend, in hopes of arriving at the park on a less crowded Monday. Today's the day. As I arrived at Glacier National Park, I quickly realized that everyone else had the same idea I did. Good morning. Good, how are you? You see, today was the first day all year that the park was not requiring permits to access going to the Sun Road. Consequently, it was a free-for-all out there. I made the most of it anyways, and just accepted that things might take a bit longer than anticipated. My first goal for the day was to recreate a photo that I came across online years ago. I skipped Lake McDonald on my last visit to the park. I didn't want to miss this stop again. The last time I was here, I was in my first year living out of a Honda Element. So much has changed in my life since that time. Both my life and the national park are much busier now than they were back then. So it has been 7 years since I last visited Glacier National Park. Last time I was here was in September of 2016, mid-September, and it is now mid-September of 2023. One of the things that I get asked a lot when I tell folks about my lifestyle and that I've been living out of various campers and traveling for so many years is what my favorite place in the country is. And generally, my go-to answer for that question has been Glacier National Park. Going to the Sun Road was spectacular. I refused to let the crowds get me down. I powered through traffic jams and finally arrived at the trailhead for my second goal of the day. This visit, almost 7 years to the date of my previous visit, also coincides with some major changes for this channel and my life. For the past couple of years, I've grappled with letting go. I assume nearly all business owners and self-employed individuals encounter this feeling at times. After some struggle with this, I'm finally at peace with the changes ahead. By the way, this is the Grinnell Glacier hike. It's 10 miles out and back. Because of the crowds, I got a late start and didn't begin this long hike until almost 4 p.m. I knew that I'd be racing to finish before dark, but I wasn't gonna let the crowds stop me from enjoying this beautiful day. These changes are not the end of the Element Life channel. They are simply a new beginning, a chance to start over and reconnect with the art of video production and filmmaking. The reality is that YouTube algorithms and AdSense revenue aren't long-term solutions for me. Moving forward, I'll need to focus a greater share of my time on client work. I want this YouTube channel to be a creative outlet. I want to make short films highlighting the stories of my life and the people in it. I want to share the adventures from the road, struggles from the off-grid property in the desert, and everything in between. These stories might not be as frequent as my previous videos, but I will be pouring everything I have into each one. Walking up to this glacier provided one of those feelings that you never forget. I had never seen a glacier this close. The icebergs floating in the lake, the distant waterfall, the silence. I suppose the benefit of starting this hike so late in the day was that everyone had already left the glacier by the time I arrived. I did make a few friends though on the way down. The one human friend was Will, a fellow nomad living out of a Sprinter van. He was quite the character, and it was a joy hiking back with him as the sun faded away. Famous last words, right? Like, I don't think they'll charge you, but I think it's their trail now.
That way.
Other friends were encountered on the way down as well, including these bighorn sheep blocking the trail. This was the closest I've ever been to large wildlife. It was a bit unsettling, but we were able to safely navigate away and continue down the mountain. Will and I finished the hike with just enough lingering daylight to make out the shapes of our vehicles in the parking lot. We went our separate ways. The following days were filled with rain. A lot of rain. My desire to explore was tempered by the lingering soreness from the long hike at Glacier and the persistent dreary weather. So I just kept driving. So I'm not sure if I was building up that memory in my head from 7 years ago at Glacier National Park, or if Glacier is just the most spectacular place in the country. I think it's probably the latter, because my day there just a couple of days ago was equally amazing, and I'm going to remember it for the rest of my life. That said, Glacier is also very far from everything else in the country. I feel like I have been driving for the past 2 days straight, and I'm only in central Wyoming. The last time I was in Casper, Wyoming was in 2017. I spent the night at the local Walmart with like 300 other people because the next morning was the most recent total solar eclipse to happen in North America, and Casper was right in the middle of the path of totality. I guess this is probably a better example of a place that I built up in my memory as being quite a bit more spectacular than it actually is. I moved through Wyoming, and the rain briefly halted as I approached the capital city. I couldn't resist. I had to make the quick pit stop and check out the capital, walk around Cheyenne. This is my first time seeing this one. It's one of the few remaining Capitol buildings that I hadn't seen, at least until today. But the rain eventually returned as I continued heading south. As I battled with traffic in Denver, my old truck gently reminded me of her age. I topped off the oil and continued on my way. One final night was spent at a Colorado rest area. The constant rain had me down. The mattress in the entire truck bed camper felt damp. I was ready to return to the blue skies of New Mexico. I missed Shannon and the property. It was time to head home. As I crossed Raton Pass and entered the land of enchantment, the skies immediately cleared. The sun was shining, the temperature was warmer. It felt great to be back. I felt the changes coming to the channel, my work, and so much more. Shannon and I had some major projects planned for the fall, along with an exciting trip back to San Francisco. But those are stories for another time.